Morning, guys. Welcome to today's show. So today I'm going to be going over how to meal prep with intermittent fasting. I asked you guys at the last live what you wanted to see, and there were quite a lot of different topics, but this kind of seemed to come up a lot, so I wanted to make sure I could go over that with you guys today. If there's any audio problems, because it's just me filming today, let me know in the chat, and I'll be able to hopefully fix that. Okay, so if you guys are new here, obviously my name's Autumn and I'm a certified clinical nutritionist, and we're going to be going over how to meal plan with intermittent fasting. And this is actually something really important to consider, and I think is kind of under considered a lot of times when people first start intermittent fasting, because people just think like, oh, I'm just going to skip a meal. Or like, should I skip breakfast or dinner? I saw that question come up a lot of what is it better with intermittent fasting? Is it better to skip breakfast or dinner? The really important thing to remember here is that intermittent fasting isn't necessarily eating less, it's eating less often. So, I have a lot of videos that go over the benefits of intermittent fasting, where that really comes from, and how it's from the frequency of those meals and not necessarily fully getting rid of a meal. And in fact, that's where a lot of problems can come into play when people just completely miss out on a meal, especially the protein, which is something I've been talking a lot about lately on my channel. So, when you completely skip a meal, you're not getting all of those nutrients, likely not getting all of those nutrients that your body needs in order to create hair or survive, or to create muscles, all of the things that we need in order to feel good, in order to thrive. So when we're looking at meal planning, we need to make sure that we're actually accounting for all of the foods that we actually need in order to survive. All right, I just want to say hi to some people. I see there's already some questions coming in. My name's not Kate Martin, it's Autumn. You should know this by now. You've been here for a while. Anyway, so if you guys have questions, you can just go throw them in the chat. I will be answering some questions at the end. Also, for any of the AM peeps who are doing the New Year Intermittent Fasting Challenge, this is week 2. So congratulations. I already finished my keto coffee, but water cheers. Oh, thanks, Martin. Thanks for the super chat. Very sweet. Always love seeing you in the chats. Okay. So if you haven't already joined the New Year Intermittent Fasting Challenge and you do want to join in, you definitely can. I have the details down in the description below. I also have a couple other things that I'm going to be going over today with some other links as well for you guys. So I'll have that in the description below. Anything else I cover, I'll make sure to also throw in there after this stream as well. So remember, throw any questions in the chat. I'll try and get to a lot of them at the end. But yeah, let's dive into meal planning with intermittent fasting. So like I mentioned, intermittent fasting is not just eating less, it's eating less often. So it's all about the frequency. So we need to make sure that we're actually planning for when you're going to be getting these 2 to 3 meals in. So when you're looking at planning, first things first, you need to figure out how many meals you're going to be having. Because if it makes more sense for you to be having 2 meals instead of 3 meals just because your schedule allows for it, then you need to be making sure you're getting enough of those nutrients at each of those 2 meals. So this is something with a lot of my clients who I meet with one-on-one, if they are considering intermittent fasting, that we really make sure to address, because it is important to make sure that you are getting the full protein needs between those 2 meals. There's been a lot of studies done on like starvation diets where they try and see, how the body responds to people being in a really restricted, calorie-restricted state. And they found that a lot of those negative effects can be mediated when you actually have enough protein. So to make sure that we're feeling good, to get enough for our needs, we need to be getting enough protein. So if you, going back to the 2 to 3 meal structure, guys, I can rant for days, so I have notes for myself to make sure I don't go completely off topic. So with this, I did create a intermittent fasting quiz to help you determine what schedule you could look for it, and if you are going to be better with the 2 meal structure or 3 meal structure. There's a lot that can go into this. That's one of the links I have in the description below. You guys can go take that. It's a free quiz, and it'll just help you determine, how many hours you should be fasting and if you should be doing like a 2 meal or a 3 meal. Just to give a quick example, athletes, I very rarely recommend having a 2 meal structure because it's very difficult, especially for an athlete, to get enough of their nutrient needs with just 2 meals. So that is something that you can check out after the live or right now while you're watching. either way, I understand you want to multitask. Okay. So the benefits, the pros and cons of looking at like a 2-meal versus a 3-meal structure. With the 2-meal, you do get more or less frequent meals. So when we're looking at the benefits of intermittent fasting, that is one of the perks, is that you aren't going to be eating as frequently. So if you are, because that helps to bring the insulin level down, which is our storing hormone, helps bring that down between meals and have more of those gaps between meals. So, and especially you guys know with the migrating motor complex, if you've seen some of my videos on that, you're going to get more stimulation of the migrating motor complex, which helps to flush out that food and bacteria from your small intestine and helps to prevent the bloating, helps to just heal the gut in general. That's where a lot of the gut healing benefits come from intermittent fasting. So especially if you're really focused on the gut healing portion, the 2-meal might be better for you. But then the 3-meal, I really like it because it is something where it's easier to get in more of the traditional type of meal structure. It matches just what we're used to anyway, so it's an easier transition. It's also easier to make sure that you can get in all of those nutrient needs that we're talking about. So they're both great. Just depends on which one your schedule allows for and what your goals allow for. So again, I'll have that. I have that quiz linked down the description below. In terms of how you can figure out what's going to be best for you. Okay, so now let's get into the actual planning, because remember, this whole topic today is like how you actually meal plan for intermittent fasting, which is different than meal prepping. I don't think that you have to be meal prepping in order to be successful with intermittent fasting. I know a lot of people find that they need to, and that's great. If that's something that you need, fantastic. But it's not something that's necessary. I don't do much meal prep. I'll make my coconut milk, which you guys know takes like 3 minutes and it's awesome. I talked about it in last week's live. But other than that, I don't do much meal prep personally, but I do meal plan. In fact, I've showed this to you guys before. Here, I'll bring this up. I'm not sure. This is me just like going with it. We'll see if you can actually see this. So I do it on the notes section of my phone, and I plan out my meals for Monday through Thursday. That's kind of getting ahead of myself. I have this in an order. See, this is why I need to stick to the script, guys, because this will make more sense. Let's go back to that first meal. So the first meal is where most people, it's going to be the biggest change, because when it comes to dinner, that's something that most of us are going to be pretty familiar with. We're going to have that same type of schedule already, where you're going to be eating at 6:30 or 7:30 or whatever it might be. But it's the breakfast or breakfast and then the lunch. Those are the two that are going to be shifted, because now you're eating during a smaller amount of time, but not necessarily eating less. So always remember that. It's a good rule of thumb. Intermittent fasting, not eating less often, which for anyone who's just tuning in right now, we're covering today meal planning with intermittent fasting, which is hugely important for getting all of your nutrient needs. So I actually want to take a break, see if there's any questions here so far. Last time I had Trevor saying all the questions for me, so it's a little bit easier. Okay, how can you cut down on sweets? Well, that's a very good question. I actually do have a video on that. I'm going to make sure to post that after this down in the description below, because I do have a really simple 2-step process for this. Okay, but other than that, I don't think there's too many questions yet. My dad's in the chat right now, Robert Bates. Hi, Dad. Does ginger break a fast? Ginger typically will not, especially because you're not going to be using enough ginger to really get enough of those carbohydrates to spike insulin. So that, like if you made a ginger infusion in your water, that should be fine. Okay, let's go back to that first meal. So remember, guys, if you have any questions that you want me to answer at the end of the live, you can throw it in the chat, and I'll also be answering some throughout as well. So when you're planning for your first meal or that break fast, you need to consider where you're going to be. That's the number one most important thing, because I know that I can be like a little idealistic on what I'm going to be able to make for the week as well. And sometimes maybe be a little too excited on different meals that I could make and then end up not being able to make them because it takes too much time. So when you're looking at that first meal, super important that you're actually looking at where you will be. And what I mean by that is, will you be home? Like, can you make a meal? Or, are you going to be at the office? Or are you someone who has to drive a lot for work? Are you going to be in the car? So this is where determining your window first is really important. So like, let's say you're going to break your fast. Like me, I usually break it around 10:30 or 11 a.m. Where you're going to be at that time. Will you be able to make your food at home, or do you need to have something prepped? Or is there a place where if you are, at work and you prefer to order your food, is there a place that you can get some type of food that fits your guidelines of what you want to achieve? Like what I talk about, the A and nutrient timing for the challenge and for the complete intermittent fasting bundle. Is there something you can grab that's close by when you go to break your fast? So it's really those three options that you're looking at for your first meal. It's, are you going to make something at home, like right in that moment? Or some people have the ability to make something at work, which is also doable. Are you going to have something prepped, or are you going to buy something? But you first need to figure out where you'll be so you can determine which of those is actually realistic. So for myself personally, I work from home, and I think a lot of people work from home now too. So it might be a little bit easier to have something where you can just grab it and make it real quick. But for example, if you're at home and you want something fast, like something that you can make really quickly, this is where I love smoothies. You guys know that. It's something that's just super fast and easy, but it's also something that you can make in advance, throw in a thermos, and if you have to be in the car or if you're in a meeting when you would normally break your fast, great option where people won't even really know that you're eating it because it's something that you're drinking. So making another really great option for something that's fast and on the go, like let's say if you're at work and you don't want to pre-make a smoothie because you get like weirded out by maybe sitting in there for too long, which I also understand. Having something like a chia brekkie bowl or Greek yogurt bowl, something that's easy to transport, especially a Greek yogurt bowl, is really great because that's something you don't have to prep, which if time is a concern, is something to really consider. Really be realistic about your schedule and thinking about what it is that you'll actually be able to do and with the time that you have, because we want to make sure that you're able to achieve your goals, not be overly optimistic on how much time you have and not be able to achieve your goals. So again, that's why I do have the AN nutrient timing in the complete intermittent fasting bundle for that exact reason, because it's, we all have different lives. Not all of us can make every meal. Some of us need to be able to have something that's easy to prep or easy to buy. And that's where we can still fit within those guidelines without having to make every single meal. Okay, so the Greek yogurt bowl, obviously you can just take that Greek yogurt and throw the toppings on there, like the A and granola I've talked about in previous videos before. I'll see if I can find it. I think it was in a recipe video from over the summer, but if I can find it, I'll link it down in the description below. Might actually be for my birthday, what I eat in a day, but I'm not sure. So I'll let you guys know. Okay, so then with that first meal, remember guys, looking at where you'll be. If you have time to cook at home and you like to make something hot, like an egg scramble or like the grain-free oatmeal from the complete intermittent fasting bundle, fantastic. That's great. But don't feel like you're failing if you can't do that. There's a lot of really great options, like making a Greek yogurt parfait, like having a smoothie that you bring on the go. And having a smoothie actually is something that I do really like to suggest to a lot of my clients who are in meetings for work. Because you might not have, since you are looking at a different schedule where you might have a different lunch schedule than most people, so your eating is thrown off from most people. It's good to make sure that you have something easy to consume that is easy to have even during a meeting. A lot of my clients who are teachers, I can speak. A lot of my clients who are teachers use this option as well so that they can have a smoothie while they're teaching and they're able to still fit it in within their window. So remember, key important thing here so far, we're going to move on to lunch, but key important thing about that break fast is to think about where will you be and how will it actually fit your schedule. So I do have that quiz on how you can make sure that you can determine what your window should be or how many hours you should be fasting. I do have that link down in the description below so you guys can check that out. Before I move on to lunch, I think I saw a couple questions come through. So yes, eggs are a great idea. I agree. Okay, so smoothies don't fill you up. That is something to consider. So a lot of smoothies can be made wrong. So just make sure that if you do choose to make a smoothie, it's not just fruit and some type of, unsweetened nut milk or something like that, or even just fruit and protein powder. We need to be hitting all of those satiety hormones with the protein and fat and the fiber component. And each person has different needs. So if you find that you aren't getting satiated from, like, let's say one of my recipes, let's say you test out one of my recipes with one of my videos and it doesn't fill you up. That's fine. Like, just make sure that you're adjusting the protein component, see if that makes it better, adjust the fat component. Some people need a little bit more fat to feel satiated. So, most of my recipes for just the base recipe will have around 20 to 25-ish grams of protein. Some people need more, especially if you find that your hunger levels are a little bit higher. So feel free to increase that, like the Greek yogurt. Even if you're using protein powder, you can use like 1.5 servings instead of 1 full serving. So adjust as needed, but know that you need to be hitting all of those satiety markers. I know that there's actually a client of mine who's in Dubai. She loves using these certain type of like grab and go shakes, but she noticed that, like the protein ones that you can get that are ready to drink. But she noticed it wasn't making her full. She was only full for about 2 hours. And that's a big sign that she didn't get all of those satiety markers triggered. And it's because a lot of those ready to drink drinks, like those protein drinks, they only have the protein. Not many of them have the fat component. So if you are going to be having a smoothie or a liquid replacement for some type of meal, just make sure it's hitting all those components to get you fully satiated. Can you have a smoothie for dinner? Theoretically, yes. So I do have some clients who use smoothies for dinners. My one kind of concern about it is that the smoothies, just like what we're talking about, they are going to be a little bit higher in fat, which for the earlier part of the day, fantastic. But what can be a little bit iffy is the timing for dinner, because dinner obviously is getting close to when you'll go to bed. And so if you're going to bed, your GI tract is naturally slowing down before bed. So that is something where fat is going to slow it down even further, which is great earlier in the day when we want to feel really satiated, not have everything run through our system. But if it's right before bed, it might make you excessively full and make it difficult to fall asleep. But if you find that, if in terms of scheduling, every now and then you have a smoothie for dinner and you make sure it's really nutrient packed and you make sure it's not right before bed and you feel good with that, by all means, test it out, see how you feel. But just make sure you're getting all those components. Okay. Yes. Okay. So Paul is asking, currently drinking your ACV sipper. I'm not drinking mine yet. This is just regular water. So I need to get that before I break my fast. But Paul is asking if it's okay to add pink Himalayan sea salt instead of Celtic sea salt. Is there a difference? There is a slight difference, but it's actually a pretty good replacement. So I just like Celtic sea salt because it is going to be something that is just generally less expensive. So, that's always nice. And it has really good high quality mineral content. So it's great. But if you have the pink Himalayan salt, fantastic. The reason why it's pink is because it is, quote, contaminated. Doesn't mean like bad contaminated, but contaminated with iron oxide, I believe. And that's what makes it pink. So, there's not a ton of difference other than that iron component. So if you want to use that, by all means, it's fine. Okay. So I see Kara's asking about the ACV sipper before breakfast. So for those of you guys who don't know, if you aren't following the complete intermittent fasting bundle, which again, I'll have linked down in the description below, it's what everyone's using for the New Year intermittent fasting challenge. The ACV sipper is the apple cider vinegar sipper recipe. So it's really important for helping to stabilize blood glucose levels from the fasted to your first meal or fed state. So with that, that's where the ACV or apple cider vinegar sipper can help with just stabilizing or balancing those blood glucose levels a bit from that fasted to fed state. But if you don't have time, it's not the end of the world. It's not like you're not getting any benefits. It just can really help to smooth out that transition. But one thing that, even if you are at work, something that a lot of my clients really like to do, which takes us back to planning for that break fast and knowing where you're going to be at. If you have that apple cider vinegar, you want to make sure that you get it in with that ACV sipper. A lot of my clients like to take either like a little glass mason jar or one of those small, like little portable containers. I can't think of what they're called, but like a glass mason jar where you just fill it up about 8 ounces of the water with the sea salt and the apple cider vinegar, and you just bring that with you. And so you're not bringing the giant Bragg's apple cider vinegar with you to work, but you just have that water, the ACV sipper on the side, so you can have that before you go to break your fast. Because for most types of jobs or careers, you should, I hope, at least be able to drink water wherever you're at. So if you can have that apple cider vinegar sipper that is pre-made in a little jar, something that I've seen a lot of my clients and AM peeps really like to use. Okay, I'm going to, I see a couple other questions, but I want to get back into lunch now. So lunch, so remember guys, just make sure to add your questions in there, and we're going over meal planning today for intermittent fasting, so you guys can make sure you get all your nutrient needs in here. And if you do want to join the New Year Intermittent Fasting Challenge, it is week 2 right now. So I have the details down in the description below, so you guys can check it out and join the other AM peeps. Okay, so lunch. The thing that's different about lunch when you are using intermittent fasting, especially if you work at, if you have if you're working, if you are working, you likely are going to be eating outside of the normal lunch hour. So this is where you need to make sure that you understand what type of schedule that you have and how you'll be able to fit in that lunch. So for some people, because their career is so busy and they're not able to eat again outside of that lunch hour, that's where the 2-meal structure can come in play. And if you're planning for that, making sure that you get all of your needs split between those meals, and if it's working for you, great. But if you are able to be a little bit more flexible and you want to have that 3-meal structure, which again is something I prefer for myself, and I've just seen as a really good option for a lot of my clients and AM peeps, that's where you just need to make sure that you have a time that you're able to eat that lunch. It might seem a little obvious, but trust me, it's something that if you just take the time to go through and see what your typical day looks like, and you plan for that and see where these meals are going to actually go in, then you'll be able to get these meals in each day. Where if you don't, it's easy to lose track, and then you're missing out on a meal, and then you're not getting enough protein needs, especially because intermittent fasting tends to decrease hunger anyway. So it's really important to make sure that you're planning for this and you're either getting those 2 meals, splitting them up between breakfast and dinner, like the full needs, or that you're getting in that timed third meal, that second meal in between your breakfast and dinner. So just taking the time to plan this in advance, looking at your schedule, being realistic with what you can actually fit in for the day, so that you can make sure you're getting your nutrient needs in. So with this, again, just like with your first meal, you need to consider where you're going to be. So if you work from home and you have the ability to, either meal prep all of your lunches, if that's something that works better for you, fantastic. Or if you like to make something, I personally really liked making just scrambled eggs and cabbage and avocado lately. If you guys have seen on my Instagram stories at all, that's been one of my go-tos. And that's just like a fast, easy option. But that's because I know that I'll be able to have the time to cook for 10 minutes. So if you have the time to cook, great. But also if you don't, and if you don't have the time to meal prep, know that it's okay to still go out to eat if it's something that's going to work better for you, as long as you can go and seek out the restaurants that are in your area or what's available to you and make sure that there's something that fits your goals. So just a little bit of planning can really go a long way. So one thing that I do with a lot of my clients when I meet with them one-on-one, and if they don't have the ability to make, if they don't have the time or they just don't want to meal prep a lunch, and they have to have some type of lunch that they're buying, we always look at what's in their surrounding area, what type of restaurants are there, and figure out what's going to best fit their budget and their goals, and just their taste preferences, because that's also really important too. Just because a kale salad with grilled chicken and avocado is good for you, if you don't like it and if you're not going to eat it, it's not going to work. So again, being realistic about not only how much time you have, but also what's going to fit your taste preferences too. So that is also with lunch something that I found is a really good, fast, easy option. Like let's say if you have eggs for your first meal, you can still have something that seems like a breakfast meal, like a smoothie, or like having a Greek yogurt bowl that's fast and easy and not something that you have to spend a lot of money on. That's a good option as well. So just because it seems like a breakfast option, as long as it's covering those nutrient needs that we're looking for, you can still have that at your lunch too. I would just recommend trying to get different types of meals. So like I mentioned with the eggs at breakfast or the Greek yogurt bowl, and then having a smoothie, just so you get a different balance of nutrients here. But you can still have something that seems like a breakfast, but it's, having it at lunch. And I've actually done this quite a bit, just like what I mentioned with eggs for lunch. That's been a go-to for me. But having the Greek yogurt parfait when I just don't have time to make anything, that's a really good option to have, because you can actually also sneak in a lot of fiber in there if you're sprinkling on the chia seeds and using a fruit like raspberries. Really great way to get all those nutrient needs in. Even though it doesn't look like a salad, it still can be a lunch as well. So that's where you can get a little creative, and depending on where you're at for the day, you can just make sure that you're getting something that fits your taste preferences, schedule, and hitting those nutrient needs. Okay. All of that fast talking. This is literally how I just talk in real life, and I just have to take a breather, guys. 1 second. Okay. So with dinner, let me see if there's any other questions in here. Oh, well, thank you for saying I'm such a good speaker. That's not something I usually would say about myself. I see James Prada saying that he wants his food to be simple because you don't have a microwave oven or heater. That's where using something like the Greek yogurt parfait, or I don't know if you guys have seen this in my latest cookbook, the A&K Autumn's Nerdy Kitchen Cookbook, but I have a adult snack pack recipe that is amazing. This is literally what I developed because I've been just like so busy with work and planning wedding and all of that. The adult snack pack is where you can just take, like those old school Lunchables, guys. Like, let me know in the chat if you guys ever grew up having those. I was never allowed to have those, unfortunately, growing up. I was always like jealous of my friends who had those. But you know how like with those adult snack packs or with the Lunchables, you can just peel them back and it has like, the ham, the cheese, and some. It was probably pizza slices back in the day. But you can do this as like an adult, healthier version that's actually really healthy and tastes great too by using, and this is like a simple option that can be cold and doesn't need to be heated up. You can have like hard-boiled eggs or grilled chicken, and then like slices of cucumber, bell pepper, jicama is a really great one that you can just slice up. And then having like olives or cheese or some type of like pesto to dip your veggies in. That's almost like my version of the adult snack or the Lunchables, but for adults. Some of my clients also who eat meat also love to add in some salami in there, like a high quality salami to get both the protein and fat component to go along with the cheese and the olives, kind of like a little charcuterie plate. So that's something that you could do as well for a fast, easy option. That's also the format for that to cover all those needs, also in the A&K cookbook. Okay, what about vegan peeps? It absolutely capable of having all of these protein components, even with a vegan diet or a plant-based diet. So it is going to generally be more carbohydrate rich, just because the plant-based proteins are generally going to be packaged with carbohydrates as well. So like with lentils, for example, that's one of my favorite more whole food plant-based sources of protein if you're going to be more plant-focused, because it's going to be higher in fiber, not as starchy dense as like chickpeas or black beans, but still pack in a little bit of protein. So there are vegan options as well. You just need to make sure that you're looking for that balance of choosing the protein options that are going to be not as starchy dense, but have more protein, so you get more bang for your buck. So if you do eat soy, I just generally recommend trying to opt for a fermented soy. So tempeh or tempeh. Always get people who tell me I say it wrong, so I'm just going to say it both ways. That's actually a fermented soy product, so it helps to make it so it's not going to be, a lot of the anti-nutrient components that are studied with soy come from the unfermented option. So if you are going to use soy, just make sure it is organic, because most of the soy products are going to be heavily sprayed with pesticides and have heavily GMO'd. But it also will help to remove those negative effects of soy by fermenting it. So organic, fermented. Those are two things you want to look for if you are going to use soy. Okay, so dinner. This is one that's going to be for most people with intermittent fasting the most similar or the same. The only thing that might change for you with dinner is that you're eating it at a set point and you're not going to be snacking after. So in order to make sure you're not snacking after, which is something a lot of people do, I used to do it as well, you do need to make sure it's fully satiating, because that is, again, something I work with a lot of my clients one-on-one, is we make sure that we're building a meal where it covers all of those bases. But especially, remember at dinner time, especially protein, not as heavy on the fat, because we don't want to slow down the GI tract too much before bed, because that can impede on sleep. So just making sure that you're getting enough for your needs. A lot of people think they're eating a lot. I get so many clients who think that they're eating so much and they're confused why they're still hungry. Ultimately, most people honestly aren't eating as much, especially of the protein components and especially of the fiber components, than they think they're eating. My brain will go faster than my mouth sometimes. But it is really important to make sure that you're getting enough so you aren't going to be snacking outside of your window. Remember, just like with intermittent fasting, even within the eating window, we want to try and stick with meals rather than snacking, because one of the main perks of intermittent fasting are those gaps between meals with the fasting period, but also by having the insulin coming down from not eating in between the meals. So if you're snacking within your window and you're not having true meals and you're not eating until satiated, then you're not going to be able to get those natural dips. Also, with the migrating motor complex, that won't be fully stimulated, and that's where the bloating or the debloating perks that most people experience with intermittent fasting, you won't be able to get. Okay. Now, going back to dinner. So with this, I showed you guys, let me bring it up again. How I plan mine. I really only plan my meals for dinner because I kind of like to stick with the kind of the same thing, at least by a week, for my first and second meal. So I'll stick with like the egg scramble for lunch for like a week, and then I'll have a certain type of smoothie I'm making for all of that week. So it just keeps that part, when you're more busy, it makes it a lot easier. But what I like to do, I'll keep it in the notes section of my phone. So I'll put like what I'm going to be having for the week. I plan out Monday through Thursday so that I can make sure I have at least during the work week covered, because I do like to cook. So I'll make sure to give myself some flexibility for the weekend. Like if I want to go out to eat, I can follow those AN restaurant guidelines, and that's fine. Or I can test out a new recipe. So I give myself a little bit more flexibility, but this is where you need to know your own schedule and what's realistic for you. So I know that I have the time on the weekend to cook a meal, and I like to do that. And so that's something I leave time for. But if you're someone who prefers more of that meal by meal planning, that's fine too. Just make sure that you're planning for that and that you get the groceries for it. So I literally just went grocery shopping yesterday. So see, I put like my need section down below. So it's easy to see like, okay, tonight I'm having eggs with leftover tortilla, soup, and salad. I need to make sure I have enough eggs. So using that type of format is a good way to make sure you get everything for your needs. Can you guys hear how hoarse my voice is already getting? Need more water. Okay. So that is just like how I mentioned with the lunch. You can absolutely still go out to eat and still have it fit your guidelines with intermittent fasting. Just make sure that, again, I have those restaurant guidelines in the complete intermittent fasting bundle, so the A and peeps can check that out for more of exact what to do. But just always a good rule of thumb, make sure that you're planning your meal around that protein source, because at restaurants, that's one of the most expensive options. So it's going to be the one that is skimped on the most. So really make sure you're actively looking out for one that's going to be a little bit higher in protein, at least for a restaurant, availability, because most of those protein sources at a restaurant are going to be pretty small. So making sure that you're looking out for that and planning the meal around that too. And then what was the other thing I wanted to bring up about dinner? I think really just the biggest thing here. All right. Okay. So especially when you're new to intermittent fasting, important to remember that if you get home a little bit later than expected, like let's say your eating window ends at 7:30 and you get home and it's 7:15 and you're stressed out because you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to fit this meal in? I still have to cook it. I still have to eat it. Like I won't be able to eat. I would rather you push your window by 30 minutes, give yourself a 8.5 hour eating window for that day and get all of your nutrient needs in, rather than completely skip that meal. Because then you're just going to wake up the next day feeling extra hungry, have those increased sugar cravings because you didn't get everything you needed. So while you're adjusting to intermittent fasting and finding that schedule that's going to work for you, just remember, be a little flexible with yourself. If you can stick with that schedule as much as possible so you can build that habit, great. But if not, if you find that there's just some days where you have to eat a little bit later and you're pushing your window by 30 minutes or so, that's fine. Remember, you're just have to be easy on yourself. This is a new format that you're experimenting with for you. You need to make sure it's going to fit your schedule and how that will adjust. And decreasing the stress as much as possible during this process is really important. We already know how cortisol can be such an issue, especially for weight loss. So just making sure you're easy on yourself in this beginning first couple week process while you find the schedule that works best for you. So just be easy on yourself. Know that it is a new adjustment and you have, depending on your age, if you're 30, you've had 30 years of certain types of eating habits that you now are readjusting. So remember, just don't be too difficult on yourself in that process. Find what's going to work best for you. Remember, I have that intermittent fasting schedule quiz down the description below. So make sure you guys take that if you are new to intermittent fasting so you can see where it'll be best for you to start off at. Okay, so I want to make sure I have some time to answer some questions now. I see Sylvia is asking, does homemade green juice break a fast? It will break a fast. The reason why is because, regardless of what type of green juice you're using, vegetables are made out of carbohydrates for the most part. And so getting that concentrated form of some type of juice is going to have that concentrated carbohydrates as well. Doesn't mean it's bad for you, but it just will break a fast. So if you choose to have it, just have it during your eating window. Okay, I see another question. What time should we eat dinner? This is something I do recommend trying to keep as close to your normal schedule as possible. So when determining your eating window, after you take that intermittent fasting quiz that I mentioned that is linked in the description below, you can then work backwards. So like for me, I usually would eat dinner around 6:30. So when I was looking at having a 16-8 fast, then I just counted backwards by 8 hours, and that's how I determined my eating window. So ideally, we want to provide at least an hour or two gap between when you eat and when you go to bed, so you have some time to break down your food, to have some digestion, because eating too late in the evening can have the negative effects of affecting your sleep. So we don't want to affect that negatively. So just go with what's going to work for your schedule as close to your normal schedule as possible, as long as you have that 1 to 2 hour break between when you sleep and when you're eating, and then just count backwards. Okay, let's see. All right, guys. So like I mentioned, if you have any questions, I'm just going through these right now to see. There are quite a lot of conversation on here, which I love to see. But if you have questions, throw them in the chat. I see some questions on what is the best drink mix. I'm not sure what you're referring to for that. So if you could throw it in the chat on a little more specifics, like, are you talking about a pre-made drink or are you talking about smoothie? Let me know in there and I'll answer that for you. The real Lil Linka 34. Thank you so much. I've been watching barely, but you are helping me so much. Thank you. That means a lot to me. Okay. So Sammy, I'm not a big fan of butter. Can I use something else instead in my smoothies? If you're referring to grass-fed butter, like dairy butter, yeah, absolutely. I actually don't really use butter in my smoothies. I just use it in the keto coffee. I do use coconut butter, so I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to. But yeah, you can absolutely swap fats in and out depending on what you enjoy. So some of my clients really like to use avocado. It makes it really thick. They really enjoy that. So avocado is a great source of fat in smoothies. I personally, honestly, not a big fan. I think it makes a weird texture, but I know a lot of people really like it. So especially if you're looking to get the sugar content down, you can swap out the banana and use the avocado in there. That's a good way to get the fat content up, get some fiber in there from the avocado as well, and still get that thicker consistency like what the banana would provide. Okay. Yeah, I see someone else answered that. Coconut butter, it's delicious. Thank you. Thank you for, I can't pronounce your name, sorry. Does keto coffee break a fast? So yeah, okay, I do have a bunch of different videos on this where I dive into this question a little bit more. It just depends on what you're looking for. So with fasting, this is where keto and intermittent fasting can really overlap, because keto kind of uses the sense of fasting where it doesn't spike the insulin. That's why keto is often also called like fasting mimicking, because it's very similar to the state of fasting, even though you aren't technically fasting. And that's because fat is the one macronutrient that doesn't spike the storing hormone insulin. So it's like a fasting mimicking. It's not a true fast where, obviously you aren't having anything to eat or drink, where a true fast would be water. That's really just a true fast. Even tea and coffee can not be considered part of a true fast. But especially for intermittent fasting purposes, I really like using keto coffee, especially if you're a beginner, because it helps to make sure that you are feeling satiated during that fasted period. It helps to be just a good way to ease into using fasting. I still use keto coffee, even though I've been using fasting for years now. But there will be some days that I'll push my keto coffee a little bit later because I feel like I need a little bit more of a true fast. So one of the only things you're really missing out on when it comes to keto coffee during the fasted state is the migrating motor complex. So remember, migrating motor complex is the gut flushing out system where your stomach, your small intestine, and your colon all push out that left behind food and bacteria that, if left unchecked, can cause SIBO, or small intestine bacterial overgrowth, or just bloating in general. So if you are looking to really maximize more of that gut healing portion, you guys know what I'm saying. You're looking for more of the gut healing action, and that's where you can have more of the true fast, or just having water. And that can really stimulate the migrating motor complex. And you can just have the keto coffee or your coffee later in either your fasting period or during your eating window. This is one of the action steps in the complete intermittent fasting bundle for the gut healing protocol specifically. So it's a good question. Okay. I see a lot of you guys answering each other's questions in here. Great students, great A&P students in here. Does homemade green juice break a fast? I did just answer that. So if you want to bounce back about 5 minutes, that was there. What about snacking during the eating window? So Linda asks, sorry if I missed this, but what about snacking during the eating window, or should we just eat twice a day? Thank you so much for all you're doing. So I did answer this one just a little bit ago as well. Just a good rule of thumb, whenever you think about eating, always think about eating until satiated, not to hold you over. So whenever we go to eat, we don't want to just eat to hold us over. We want to eat until satiated. And that's where snacking can be a little bit of an issue, because you're just really eating to hold you over. It also makes it so that you're not going to get those true gaps between meals where you can get the migrating motor complex to help sweep out that left behind food and bacteria. So ideally, we want to try and get those meals during the fasting state rather than just eating consistently through the eating window, because then you're not getting that migrating motor complex stimulation, or the insulin as well. The insulin is going to stay higher throughout that whole eating window rather than allowing to dip back down. So that's where, if you are going to do a 2-meal or a 3-meal structure, depends on your goals as well as just your timing for the day. Like a lot of my clients who are really busy, like big executives, they can only have time to eat those 2 meals. So they make sure to really pack in everything they need for those 2 meals. And that's where planning for intermittent fasting is crucial, because it is easy to just underplan and not get enough for your needs. And then that's where people start to feel hungry and get sugar cravings, all that stuff we don't want. So using the tips I talked about today is really important for that. But you can also do the 3-meal structure. Like I mentioned, that's something I really love. So just planning for what's going to work best for you, but aiming for not having the snacks. That's what you want to work toward, really getting satiated with those 3 meals. If you're properly stimulating the satiety hormones, you really shouldn't be hungry for at least 3 hours, if not up to that 4-hour point. And even at that 4-hour point, you really shouldn't be feeling starved. Should just be feeling like, okay, like I could eat right now, but not like ravenous. That ravenous feeling is when you're on that more roller coaster blood glucose ride. And that's when you're in that dip. And you get that ravenous feeling usually about 1 to 2 hours after a meal if you didn't properly address the protein and fat and fiber component. Okay, so Amanda's asking, does cooking cruciferous veggies and other veggies like spinach ruin some benefits? So technically, some of the vitamins will get denatured or broken down. So there is that. But, it also depends on what you're looking to achieve. Because if you are looking for more gut healing, having a bunch of raw veggies not a good idea. It does take more time to break down those raw veggies. So if your gut's already in a state where it needs to be healed and it needs more rest, if it has to put in all that extra work to break down those fibers, that's just going to be less attention it can take to healing itself. So raw vegetables can be great if you're looking for more of a weight loss goal and if you don't have any gut healing concerns, because then you get more of that stomach activation and the stretch mechanism telling your brain you're full and satisfied. But if you're looking for the gut healing area of health benefits, then actually cooking your vegetables is really important. Also something that's one of the action steps in the complete intermittent fasting bundle. So for any of you guys who are using that, that's the gut healing guru protocol. Okay, so Teddy is saying, hey, hi, you're so, wait, hang on, so many comments. You're so knowledgeable and I'm hoping you can help me with this. I've been experiencing muscle twitching in mostly my calves, sometimes my neck and sides. I take electrolytes. Usually with any type of muscle twitching, one thing that most people are missing out on is magnesium. Of course, there can be other factors. So, medical disclaimer, make sure you check in with your doctor. But what I've seen with my clients is that a lot of that muscle twitching tends to go away. First of all, if you have enough electrolytes, which sounds like you are getting that, fantastic. But magnesium is also one of the biggest missing components. So that's something to check out if you're taking that. If you're not, you can look into if that's going to be a good option for you. Okay. So someone else is asking, I'm allergic to strawberries. Is it okay to replace the strawberries and the coconut muffins with blueberries? This is regarding one of the recipes within the complete intermittent fasting bundle. Absolutely. Yeah, feel free. Actually, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, you can use any berry for that recipe. Hey, Skills Many, good to see you on here again. Okay, Jazzy is eating one day healthy. I think what you're saying, do you mean like OMAD? Because if so, you could eat one time a day. My biggest question mark on that is if you're going to be able to eat enough for your needs. Like, for example, most of my athlete clients, it's just even 2 meals is really impossible to get all the nutrient needs for their goals with OMAD or 1 meal a day. So that could be a little iffy. But some people do it well. And if you find you can get all your needs in with that 1 meal, by all means, test out, see how you feel. Okay, guys, make sure you're putting your questions in the chat and I'm going to answer a few more for today. And if I don't get to you today, this is the New Year Intermittent Fasting Challenge. I have the details down in the description below if you guys want to join in. But I'm doing the lives every Monday for the next 2 more weeks throughout this challenge. We did one last week as well. And I might be doing more of this on like a regular basis. I'm not sure how you guys feel about that. You'll have to let me know. But I want to have some type of office hours where I can interact with you guys and answer your questions. This is really, as you guys can tell, I like to talk. So this is fun for me too. All right. Can smoothies help in losing weight? Yeah, you just need to make sure you're doing it right. So there are a lot of bad smoothies where it's just I did a video a while ago on a Jamba Juice smoothie where it was on the healthy menu and it was so loaded with sugar. It was pretty much just pure sugar. I think it was 50 grams of sugar. I could be wrong, but that was just a pure fruit smoothie with fruit juice as the base, blended fruit. And it was even on the healthy menu. So if you're having something like that, that's just really going to spike insulin and not hit any of those satiety markers. So that type of smoothie, no. Definitely not. I also have a video, the 10 smoothie mistakes that you're probably making. That one is one of the tips in there, but just make sure you're doing smoothies right. You have to make sure you're getting enough of the nutrients for all the satiety markers. Okay. I see some people saying yes, more live chats. Yes, love your lives. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Kat, for yes, more lives. Okay, how much fruit do you recommend in a day? First of all, it comes down to what type of fruit you're having. If it's dried, obviously that's not something we want on a consistent basis because it's really packed with sugar and all of that water is taken out, which would normally help with increasing satiety. Plus, a lot of the dried fruits tend to be the higher sugar dried fruits like mango. So mango, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I believe 1 cup of mango is like 35 grams of sugar, which is pretty significant. If you consider like raspberries, 1 cup is about, I believe it's like 7 grams of sugar, but also with like 7 grams of fiber. So looking at the types of fruit really matters. Some people are more carbohydrate sensitive. So if you are more carbohydrate sensitive, definitely staying away from those higher sugar fruits, definitely staying away from the ones that are dried and aiming for more of the lower sugar fruit options. Okay, so Sid is saying, if I don't finish my ACV sipper before I break my fast, is it better to continue drinking it after eating or just swap back to regular water? You can still continue drinking it after. All the studies that I found on apple cider vinegar are before the meal. So they're affecting what's called postprandial blood glucose levels, which is just a fancy word for meaning like after you eat blood glucose levels. And the studies are done with the apple cider vinegar before, about 10 to 15 minutes before the meal. So if you don't finish it all, that's fine. Like you can still have it after, and that should still be beneficial at the very least. But I have not seen any studies specifically on it after a meal, but it's worth still having as well. Kelly says, I'd love to have you go live once a month. So inspirational. Maybe I'll do that. Okay. Okay, so Marissa saying, my hubby and I are almost getting a gallon of water a day, but still not moving things through. Are we drinking too much water? Big thing here to remember is there is something called hyponatremia, which means it's essentially where you have low sodium levels, which we always think, or used to always think of sodium as a bad thing. But we actually need quite a bit of sodium for nerve transmissions within our body is a really, really big important factor for sodium. And if you're drinking a lot of water that doesn't have the electrolytes to replace it, then you can actually dilute out that sodium to the point where you're going to be at risk for hyponatremia. And hyponatremia, I don't know if you guys ever saw this. There's the Boston marathoner who, this happens a lot with marathoners. They'll drink a lot of water and not get the electrolytes to replace it. And you can pass out, have a coma. To the extreme, it can be something that's fatal, but most people aren't drinking that much water, so don't be too scared of that. But as long as you're getting the electrolytes, then that's okay. You're getting that balance. So with the water, just always make sure if you're increasing the water that you're also getting the electrolytes as well. That's why in the complete intermittent fasting bundle, you have the Celtic sea salt, you have the Celtic sea salt in the ACV sipper, and we use sea salt throughout the meals as well. So just make sure you're getting enough of that. Okay. Leia says, stumbled across your page and you happen to be live. Sweet. Yeah, I might do more of these, so let me know if you like it. Darren says, more live, please. Really great way to connect. I agree. I love this. I see so many of you guys commenting right now that's commenting on my videos too, and I'm always talking with you guys on there, but it's cool to see you guys on here. Okay, what would be the downfalls of not fasting one day of the week? So that's David is asking, what would be the downfalls of not fasting one day of the week? I know that there's a lot of, I think that some people can stress about the fasting period and think that it has to be extremely rigid. If you can get the fasting in 6 days a week, 5 days a week, 4 days a week, fantastic. Like you're getting those benefits on those days. You're getting that gut healing on those days, and that's great. But it's not like you're ruining those benefits if there's 1 or 2 of the days that you're not getting fasting in. There was a study, I can't remember the specific one, but there was a study done, I believe in 2019, where they did compare the benefits of fasting like 3, 4, or 5 days a week. And the benefits do start to stack up the more often or the more frequently you're doing it. But it's not necessarily like you're not getting any benefits from doing like 2 or 3 days of the week. So if it fits your schedule and it allows you to still live your life the way that you want to live it, and you're fasting only 4 days or 5 days of the week, that's still great. I would just recommend that you still look at the nutrient timing principles. And if you're at least following that on the non-fasting days, you're still naturally going to get those gaps between meals and stimulate that migrating motor complex. So that's where the AN nutrient timing that I talk about in the complete intermittent fasting bundle still applicable even on non-fasting days. So still, if you're at least making sure you're looking at that, you're still getting those gaps between meals. And that's what's really important. Okay, so guys, next week, just like this week, I did not plan this topic. You guys picked it. I asked you at the end of this live, last week's live, as well as on Instagram to let me know what it is that you wanted to see next week. So please let me know what you want to see next week. This week we covered the meal planning with intermittent fasting. If there's something specific that you guys want to see for next week, I haven't set the time yet, but likely it will be the same time, Monday at 9 a.m. So just let me know what you guys want to see. If you could comment on this video after, like it as well if you got some value out of this. I love to hang out with you guys today. But just comment below in the actual comments so I can make sure to go back and see what it is that you guys want to see for next week. And I'll make sure to, as best as I can, pick something that seems like everybody wants to see. But if you do want to join the New Year Intermittent Fasting Challenge, absolutely not too late. A lot of people are having already some really amazing success in the Facebook group. It's been really fun to see everyone interact with that. So I have the link for the details for the New Year Intermittent Fasting Challenge down in the description below as well. So just again, guys, make sure, let me know what you want to see. I am purely picking the topics off of what you are telling me you want. So let me know after this live ends in the comments below. And then I'm excited to see you guys next week. This is really fun. A big thing also for next week, let me know if you liked more of this, us talking, interacting, and me giving some tips and strategies. Or if you liked more of the recipe type of video, I can absolutely do either. It just depends on what you guys want. So make sure to let me know. All right, guys, I think I need to drink all of this water. I think all you guys do as well. So especially with all this water talk, let's all go drink some water. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.